Hi, I'm Rich Heller, and welcome to Rich in Relationship. And today we're talking with Carl Roberts, who's created this amazing program that's going to help people simplify their divorce called SplitSmart. And what qualifies him for this is Carl had I believe it or not, 10-year legal battle in his divorce, and he's a software developer, and he put those two things together so other people don't have to go through 10 years of pain and agony. Have I got that right, Carl?
You got it, Rich. Thank you.
And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's been a great week, and really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me about SplitSmart.
Well, I'm pretty excited about this software because it sounds like it's going to make things simpler for individuals who want to get divorced, and probably for divorce professionals as well. It sounds like a great tool. So I'm curious, Carl, what passion drove you to create this software? And I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I'm sure you're going to fluff that omelet for me.
Yeah, I mean, so many of us enter divorce naively. We have no clue what's about to come down our path.
No joke.
There's plenty of us who like to try to endure, just make it work, and then that doesn't work, and there's plenty of us that just know we want out. But really, nobody really wants an ugly divorce. It just sometimes happens, and I just don't think while there's plenty of people with worse personal stories. I mean, my story was pretty horrible. I mean, it's a 10-year high conflict custody battle and divorce process that just did not need to happen. Several $100,000 later, a decade of lost life, love, and energy, and everything else that just did not need to happen. And this just so certainly that was my inspiration for SplitSmart. And because I mean, if it happened to me, hell, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah. Well, and for the people who may be thinking about divorce, or maybe they're just in the beginning of their divorce, tell us a little about the potential pitfalls, pains, and agonies of the whole custody issue between two parents who are splitting up.
Yeah, I mean, so divorce typically has got two sides to it. You got money and kids, and when those things combine, it can just get really crazy. And so, over the years, I certainly have developed different philosophies, and one of the philosophies is the single difference between a good divorce and an ugly divorce is simply the presence of a bad actor. That bad actor can
or maybe two. but all it takes is one. That's the truth.
It's all it takes is one, and it could be one or both, man or woman, lawyer or litigant. And typically those bad actors, at least on the litigant side of things, are good people. Mm-hmm. They're good people who get tripped up by their emotions, oftentimes by bad advice from a lawyer or friend. And then more often than most people realize, there's mental health issues of narcissism, sociopath, and borderlines, which they don't get diagnosed in this process. We just know that they're there, and they, just spiral this process out of control, both on the money and kid side of things, because they're it's all about control for them.
Or they may just have tendencies. They don't even have to necessarily be diagnosable. Like the people that I work with pretty consistently, everyone's a narcissist. He's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. And the truth is that if we look at narcissism on a scale, 10 being diagnosable and 1 being Mother Teresa, who probably wasn't a narcissist, just saying, but I don't know, I didn't meet her.
Right.
That when we're triggered, we go into survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, our natural tendency is to go me first. So I think there's something about the divorce process that makes people feel unsafe and triggers them. And immediately, even if they were Mother Teresa, they get closer to being whoever the most flagrant narcissist is you can think of. And I'm going to avoid politics today, so I'm not giving any examples.
Yeah.
Whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, we're not going there.
That's right. Keep it safe. But yeah, I mean, so again, so it's the emotions again. So you can have, people have easy divorces all day long, every day, in every state in the country. Mm-hmm. And you have two people who whether they got an estate and some kids, they just want to really close that chapter, move on to the next. It's not about entitlement. It's not about control. They just want to, and again, when it comes to kids, most people, and again, it may not apply to everybody, but most people want to provide their children a future where their children can thrive in the love and support of both parents.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get into the process and you get the emotions going on, and the system kind of helps pit you against one another, so custody battles are never about what's best for the child. They're always about money.
The players might say it's about what's best for the child, Bill, but what's interesting is they usually have different ideas about what that is.
So the best interest of the child statutes in every state, I mean, it's really just that false banner. More than anything, it's the best interest of the lawyers. And so the best interest of the child standard is a non-standard from my perspective. And it's really any one person's opinion. And at the end of the day, you may have a custody evaluator, which I'm not really fond of in that process. But and then it's the court. The court says, well, the custody evaluator says this is what's best interest, so I'll roll it that way. And it's just it's a horrible, horrible system.
Right. Well, and I think that any time that you get into that position where you are ceding your power to someone else, a judge has decided that the two of you are just too far apart to make a healthy decision about your children, so they bring in a specialist to help. Anytime you have to give ground in some small way or big way, actually the child, it's a crapshoot whether the child's going to come out all right or whether. And the sense of ceding power and giving it over to a judge or to a therapist or whoever is going to build that sense of feeling threatened and raise, if you were feeling a little defensive and narcissistic, now you're going to be really defensive and narcissistic because your power has been taken away from you.
Well, I mean, so no doubt that when you get in, if you're going down the court route, it's a as you say, a crapshoot, and it's nobody wins in it except the lawyer.
You like that language, huh?
Yeah.
You run a real clean show here. Crapshoot. That's as bad as again, I promise you.
You get me in on a good day. But it is really from the standpoint, and so even before court, I mean, before you go down that route, I mean, if you're going down that route, you're already kind of screwed. Everybody's screwed.
Because they at that point, they have, unless you're going to make a settlement, the court owns you.
Right.
Now, the statistic is that 97% of litigation settles, but
it's such a skewed type conversation because you're already in the process and people are already leveraging their whatever they got to leverage to get to an inequitable agreement. Mm-hmm. I'd say even a good percentage, and I have no idea what that is, but a good percentage of those settled prior to court are still pretty crappy.
I can't tell you how many attorneys have said to me, a happy divorce means everyone feels equally screwed.
And, there's some aspects.
Language is getting better.
but again, so today's world, I mean, so more in the profession, in the divorce industry, and it is an industry, it's a $50 billion industry annually, that was more and more the emphasis on alternative dispute resolution approaches. Whether that's just mediation or figuring it out across a coffee table or mediation or collaborative attorneys. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's certainly a growing area, and that's certainly where the technology, like what I'm bringing to the table, helps facilitate.
Yeah, so let's talk about SplitSmart and how it solves some of these problems that we've been talking about. How does SplitSmart work? How does it? I'm going to express a little doubt here. Everyone always thinks technology is a quick fix in the solution. So it's going to be the silver bullet, or if you're killing werewolves, or magic bullet if you just want to kill anything. So I'm curious, how does SplitSmart work?
So, so our chore, whether it's money or kids, our chore is to, SplitSmart's an organizational tool. An organization, and through organization, it helps ensure that you're getting everything that you want that you really need in a healthy divorce process. Transparency, again, organization, so you can kind of start to build that trust between one another, so you can more quickly get to that reasonable resolution and outcome that this works best for your family. And so not only is it that what's the key to getting everything you need in a healthy divorce process, it's also the antidote to avoiding everything that's bad. The gamesmanship, the deceit, the unreasonable positions. It helps mitigate most of that as well.
Well, and the truth is that all that stuff's got to come out anyway. And so SplitSmart provides a way that the people getting divorced can start providing the information without being charged by a lawyer or a financial advisor to pull that stuff together. But how does it ensure that everything's on top?
Well, I mean, again, just through organization. And I mean, so I won't go down I'll stick with kind of on the kid side of things right now. But yeah, I mean, it is, again, it's ensuring transparency. And
that's my fault. I started wading into the other end of the pool. So I want to promise everyone who's listening that we're going to do another episode and we're going to talk about the financial side with SplitSmart so they really understand it. Because of the limited time I'm with you, thank you for sticking with the children. How does SplitSmart help with the children, making sure that everything is on top and in their best interest?
So again, back to the belief that every parent, stated or not, I mean, really wants what's best for the kids, right? They want that future where everybody can love on the kids. I mean, in one perspective, a 50-50 parenting plan is really kind of what's best for kids, but it's not practical for everybody else. And so you have this system of child support out there, which is really starts to kind of queer the whole deal. And from the standpoint that child support, the more overnights that I have, the more I get in child support, or the less I pay. Quite often is how it's calculated.
Uh-huh.
And to me, that's the most asinine thing that ever was. It's abusive. It puts the child in the middle of the conflict. It puts a price tag on the kid's head.
Well, especially when you consider that the real difference between the cost of taking care of the child is basically food at that point. I mean, unless you're talking about school, even then. If you're talking about actual at-home time, the two parents have the spaces that they live in already. It costs them what it costs them already. So how do you decide that suddenly you're going to have to pay a whole bunch more money because your child is eating somewhere else? But something I'm wondering about here is...
Well, hold on. So you kind of getting ahead. You kind of take me off track there, Rich. But I mean, so again, trying to set the stage. And then again, the system of child support is problematic. And then you add on society, and then you get on our control issues, and then you got all these things out, and it pretty quickly takes people who may be teetering on whether or not they're amicable down this path of paying child support. From my perspective, most everybody wants to be able to provide for their children to the best of their ability, but not a soul amongst us wants to provide for or pay for the lifestyle of the ex through child support. So that's the one big difference. So the more you can separate out time and money, custody and child support, the better off everybody is. The more easily you can solve both.
No, that makes sense, because people, very often the money gets tied up with other things. And so the more you can separate it organizationally, the more it's going to help people think about them separately, which is a challenge. I am curious about something, and that is, children at different ages have different needs. Like a child who's 1 to 3 may really need to be with one parent more than the other. And a child who's 3 to 7 could probably start spending time with both parents more. And then, when they get to be teenagers, they might have one parent they're identifying with more strongly because they're coming into early manhood or early womanhood. How does your system account for those things?
So SplitSmart is a pre-decree app. So it's really starting to set the stage. So it's to help you try to define what the parenting plan and the schedules are at the time of divorce, and for that period just after divorce, for the year or so after divorce. And then and it's both not only those schedules and parenting plans, but also how you're providing for the child. And again, the problem, and I keep coming back to, child support being, the state child support guidelines are very problematic in my perspective. Again, we want a future where everybody kind of gets along, whether we don't have to invite people, to every occasion, but we want to be able to kind of get along and be in the same room and not make everybody else uncomfortable, right? Yeah. And especially our kids. Mm-hmm. And so again, the more I can separate time and money, parenting time and financial support, the better off we are. the more easily it can solve, and the more I can distinguish between adult benefit and child benefit of money, then again, the more the conflict we can remove out of the overall equation. So, but to answer your question here is that we have really two parts about SplitSmart. There's a parenting plan part, which is a pretty comprehensive template. And what's unique in our template and our approach to it is really a line item negotiation approach for each individual item, all the different areas of decision making, 4 or 5 different types of schedules, 15 miscellaneous items of which you can add more to it. But you can, by writing your position or making a proposal on each individual item and then writing that down, you're writing because the way you write, as opposed to, I like to say, a written position softens a verbal stance, right? I mean, because I can show up there with a mediator and just spout off, I want this or I want that.
Yeah.
But if I'm writing it down, I want my words to reflect me, and I don't want other people to be able to look at this and think, well, he's in this for himself. So if I'm putting those words down, I'm more thoughtful with those words. And so I want to see that they're child-centered. So it's going to soften me to a more common ground and a more practical position, as opposed to something more punitive that kind of a lot of people go to. Now on the money side, and so I'm not counting overnights in any of that, and I'm suggesting that the parents don't count overnights in any of that as well. But I get you end up with a pretty comprehensive parenting plan, not a legal document, but a parenting plan that really is very practical and covers most areas that you want covered. On the money side of it, most of the state guidelines of child support are based on an income shares model. What SplitSmart has brought forward is an expense shares model and a savings model. So on the expense side, the parents are kind of going through and estimating on a line item basis the various expenses for the kids. For each kid, line item annual budget amount for each kid. Ultimately, we total that up. We're also taking into account who typically pays for that expense during the normal course of life. Mom pays for all the education, dad pays for the insurance coming out of his paycheck, and they both buy clothes, whatever the case may be. So at the end of it, you're going to realize that there are, we'll say $10,000 in annual child-specific expenses that are there, and then you're going to kind of reach an agreement as to how you want to split those expenses, whether it's 50-50 or 70-30 because one makes more than the other, or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, I accept much more responsibility for taking care of my kid than I ever will for paying for my ex. So again, it shifts the focus from the ex to the child. And then I embrace more responsibility. I'm a hell of a lot more generous with my kids. And then on the savings side, again, just being able to articulate that I'm contributing X to the 529 for the new car.
Well, let's save the money, but the important part of the money is what I really like about SplitSmart is the cost versus having attorneys do this for you. What is the cost of SplitSmart, and how can people find you and SplitSmart?
Yeah, SplitSmart.com. Kind of simple like that. And then so right now I've got it out. I'm still kind of early in my rollout, so it's $79 for a year. Most people won't have
for a year.
Yeah, and so most people
I think $79 might, if you're lucky, buy you 10 minutes of an attorney's time or less, depending on the attorney.
Absolutely, and the attorneys don't want to deal with this crap anyway. I mean, they really rather you figure this out on your own because this is into the minutia. And so $79 is really a one-time fee for most people. And I mean, you're on a much better path. I see it as these organizational guardrails kind of keep you on that straight and narrow path to happily ever after, just separately.
Got it. And I have one last question for you. Are you ready?
Lay it on me.
What's the legacy that Carl Roberts wants to leave behind?
I don't want other families, especially other children, to have to go through what my children and what I went through, and really what my ex-wife went through as well. It's just none of it's necessary. It's people that became bad actors that, are good people, but because the system encouraged you to be a bad actor and encouraged the conflict, you got tripped up. And if I can prevent, my legacy is I want to, again, help more parents, provide their children with that future where their children can thrive in the love of both parents. That's all
I love that. I love your empathy. I love your heart. All right. So once again, you can find SplitSmart at splitsmart.com, SplitSamart.com. And this information will be in the podcast or video blog notes or whatever, however you're receiving this. And Carl and I are going to do another piece in the very near future on the financial side. What are some of the problems you come up against and what are some of the solutions? So stay tuned. Thank you so much, Carl.
Rich, I really do appreciate it. And look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.